We have breaking news as Bitcoin breaks past $49,000. Is the market rigged, just like the Chief game over on the Super Bowl this weekend, guys? Is Joe Biden bullish than ever on Bitcoin? We're going to find out today. Time to discover crypto.
Ow! Wow.
Capital flight is coming to the United States. The dollar is going to zero.
And that's what makes Bitcoin so special.
You have to have gone through a couple cycles to understand.
Once the price is able to clear this level, the breakout is on its way.
This is your indication to jump in now.
Good morning, everybody. $49,000 Bitcoin. We're hitting levels we haven't seen in over 660 days. The markets are more green than ever, and we have less than 60 days to potentially hit all-time highs and make a ton of money while we're at it. DZ, how we feeling? How was your weekend? You made the best food. Well, your fiance made the best food ever, but
she made some great food. Tony made some really good chili. Shout out to Frankie Candles and the crew over there. Yeah, we had a really good time. I think Mahomes is just buying up a whole bunch of Bitcoin with his Super Bowl bonus. I think was happening here.
Yeah, you
said it was rigged. Are the markets rigged? I don't want to talk about the big game.
Look, Niners were up the full first half, right? Full first half, and all of a sudden it becomes the most competitive battle in the game in the second half. And by the time I left in the third, I think it was third, that they were still at zero. It was like 3 points.
I would never say anything.
I don't know.
I don't have any evidence of any kind of rigging, of course, but I did see one, or I heard one comment that I found pretty telling. Kelsey is open for some reason. Like they knew it's like you don't leave that guy open, but he's like he's just open for some reason.
Like, They
literally said he's open for some reason.
Look, we're 1/3 the way there. We got to see the engagement with Taylor Swift and then her endorse Biden. That is where we're heading with this, guys. But despite all the fun jokes aside, guys, it was an amazing weekend. I hope you guys had a wonderful time with your friends and your family. I know we did at, of course, DZ had a wonderful hosting party.
Yeah, we had I didn't see the Puppy Bowl. Shout out to everybody who watched the Puppy Bowl. It used to be the Bud Bowl. I brought up the Bud Bowl at my house party. Then I felt like an old boomer. I felt like I had lived through the Depression. People were like, what are you talking about, Grandpa? I was like, well, in the 90s, they would have cartoon beer cans play football. And it was definitely marketed to us kids. And we would watch while eating candy cigarettes. And they're like, shut up, Grandpa. It's the Puppy Bowl
I was finally defended at his own party. You guys know I constantly miss all of these flashbacks DZ has from when I was 4 years old. So I don't sometimes catch them here.
Look, I'm not seeing in black and white Vietnam War or, I'm not storming Normandy Beach in my mind. Okay. It was the Puppy Bowl and the Bud Bowl. It made Nick Damon. You remember the Bud Bowl, right? Or are you too young as well?
I barely remember that.
God, the Bud Bowl, man. It was
I think what we are going to remember forever, guys, are the price charts today. Bitcoin's at $49,500, ripping through that level, testing 50K as we speak. I'm sure if we refresh this as I'm live, right? Yeah. 49,000. It looked like it went up to 600 for a second. Woo. So we're seeing green, guys. Green in the books today. Bitcoin, again, $49,498. I can say that just so many times and just like it still. Ethereum at $2,553. Solana at 108, broke $100 and just absolutely ripped through it. BNB up to 323. We have XRP. My gosh, XRP, get some movement in yourself, man. This reminds me, we need that airplane scene. With XRP sitting in that chair on the flight, and every other cryptocurrency just coming up and slapping it across the face with those gains. We have Cardano 2.1
today. I'm looking at the chart because some of these short-term time frames is just looking kind of nuts. Just to get people, a little bit excited there. That's the 5-minute chart right there. Yeah, we were kind of trading sideways. Oh, we can't get above this range. We can't get above this range. Oh, if it does, it'll just barely be this little trend line here, and you see a little bit of the action there. Like, people drawing out that trend like, it's going to reverse. It's going to reverse. Let me go ahead and open a short. And then they're just getting liquidated right now. Those shorts are getting liquidated like you had too much chili.
Thank you, bears on the markets. For all of you that think the markets were going to crash and shorted, thank you for being our exit liquidity here today. Feels absolutely wonderful. And speaking of the gainers, okay, I heard if you guys smash that like button and are subscribed to this channel, it gives you an immense amount of good luck. Almost as much luck as the Chiefs being rigged in that Super Bowl. I'm going to keep saying that just because we need to pinpoint it in there. But hey, shout out to Drake for winning like $1.1 million.
Which is more rigged? The financial system or the NFL?
Well, depends. In football, they deflate the football, and in the politics and in our financial system, they inflate the dollars. So
I would say that's not as
I think
timely
we need to trade.
We
need to trade the two.
Okay,
right? That's what we need to do. We need to deflate the dollar here. Now, guys, jokes aside, guys, top 24 hours moving here. We have Beam up 17%, up to
Wow.
almost 3 cents. Mina Protocol up to 11.8 cents. Stacks, baby. Shout out to all my Stacks holders in the community. We are up 34% this week. Massive call out from, of course, our Discord and our community, guys. Make sure you guys check out Bitlab Academy. But this was a call at 46 cents. So we're now up over 400% on the Stacks call from earlier in this July. Immutable X almost at $3. Optimism up 6.6%. Swee up 5.5%. And then another one, Ordi right here. It's starting to see those Bitcoin layer 2s really take some steam here. And I'm really paying attention to Stacks. They have a lot of products building on them.
Yeah,
now,
a lot of Bitcoin, being built. Just the whole entire ecosystem is being built up in a great way. And it's like Jack Dorsey's T-shirt. You know what I mean? It's starting.
Did you see that last night? He was like sitting with
Foundations are
Beyonce.
there. Yeah, he had the Satoshi shirt. It looked like the Nirvana font. The yellow. I don't know if you know the Nirvana shirt that I'm talking about, but yeah, Dorsey there with Jay-Z looking like a upset grandmother.
Yeah, it was like
Um,
Beyonce, Jay-Z, and Jack Dorsey. I was like, that was just not something I would think I would ever have seen.
Yeah, they go way back.
Maybe they're on Blue Sky. Are they on Blue Sky now?
Maybe. But you know what? I'm feeling blue looking at these big losers, everybody. Dimension is down. It's still a newer coin. So, a lot of the early investors there are probably just taking a lot of profit right now.
But Dimension is up in politics. So
Yeah, Atom is down 2.7. Tau is down. Monero still seeing a little bit of a bleed there, but seems to have stabilized in around this $115, $125 range. Osmo's down, but really nothing's down too much. After that, we're under 1%. And then just back right into the green, baby.
Right into the green. Yeah, lots of green. Definitely the biggest takeaway from these losers in the top 24 hours, though, is Monero. Honestly, I was expecting a bit of a quicker bounce back from that privacy token. Have not seen that at all. It's down 27% still on this week. So I'd still be very, very cautious with the privacy tokens moving into the cycle.
And Beam, Love Breakers. Yeah, Beam was, one that we were talking about in the basement super early. I talked about it. I waited a little bit before I ended up making the trigger. I pulled the trigger there. But Beam, look at this right here. 66.9%,
Nice.
Everybody. That's very, very nice pump for the weekly there. So Beam, if you jumped in on Beam, everyone's doing pretty good today.
Danny Bird with the $50 super chat. Keep up the good work, boys. Took a long last night on Cardano. We pumping. Shout out to you, man. Thank you for all the support. Love you, brother. Dude, seriously, it means so much and just so much encouragement coming from you guys in the chat.
And let's look at Cardano since he
dude,
brought
what
it
a
up
great
here.
Friday stream.
It's just enjoying this pump, just like Bitcoin's enjoying this pump. You see this right here, just off into the races. But then you go the 7-day, you're like, okay. But Bitcoin testing these new short-term highs here. Cardano still has to get close to that 60 cents range that it was at, previously. In fact, got even close to 69 cents.
I am curious on Link right now. Is Link above $20 yet? I'm still waiting for that this week.
I don't think so.
Oh, we're up above $20.
Oh, wow.
$20.40 to the Link Marines, guys. And we've had some great call outs these last few weeks. People are like, you guys are crazy.
It's almost like when you
Up,
identify
up, and up.
strong projects with strong teams with good fundamentals, it kind of plays out in your
in a
favor.
bull market too. That's just
I know.
Whoa.
The
crazy.
whole game right now, though, folks, if you don't know, if you're just now joining the channel, please make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We bring you content 5 days a week live, and we're bringing you content 7 days a week. And we're just trying to give you these big winners. But the name of the game is outpace Bitcoin. So if we're not out pumping Bitcoin, what are we really doing? And so Beam, just take a little victory lap, Link Marines, and all the, what do we say for Beam? Beamers?
Beamers?
That's too close to born in Mexico, so we can't say that. My father was. I can say that. Beamer. I don't know. Beamers like BMWs.
Beamer streamers, man. I like
Beamers.
it. I had a Beamer. What do you mean? I used to drive a Beamer all the time. That's what we
do they
refer
call
to it
the
as.
Beam community, chat? Let us know down below. We'll
Beam us
we'll
up
read the
to
fun
that
ones.
100x. Like the aliens come in, suck them up. Like the cows. But speaking of beaming up, we have laser eyes. I was
All right,
close.
Scotty.
I was
All
close
right,
here.
Scotty.
Biden Sports laser eyes. If you guys did not see this,
What does this
lots
mean?
of speculation come around. Look at Dark Brandon
You know what?
here.
We're going to talk about the origin of this meme when we have our guest on in a little bit. I want to ask him about the laser eye meme. He kind of was letting us know, like, well, before Bitcoin, it was this. And so, just a little interesting fact about the laser eyes.
Yeah, we have someone from the CIA joining us here today, guys. So if you guys want to get the Fed's decisions, that is where we're going.
No, he's a visual FX artist for Terminator 2, and he was the inventor of the red eyes.
He's like, you'll see what he looks like in a little bit, and you're going to go, look, we're going to take a poll in the chat, okay? Is he pretty or is he CIA? Those are two good questions
well, they
here.
say the CIA, you should be, intellectual who can win a bar fight. That kind of describes him.
I'm staring at him right now. He's blushing. So if he was in the CIA, he'd be a lot better at bluffing. But you guys will get to see that in just a little bit here.
That's
so
part of the plan.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Joe Biden in a little
blush.
bit. I want to I do want to get your first, thoughts on this. Do you believe these are laser eyes? Is this Dark Brandon having some fun?
It's clearly a Dark Brandon meme.
Yeah.
In fact, we had someone in the building today bring up this meme, and he's like, he's enjoying this ad campaign or whatever you want to call it.
So this, I would
But
agree.
He
And this
didn't know
comes
what
right
this
after.
is. Like, there's no way Joe Biden knows what this is.
Well,
Like,
we
he
have
did not
some
make-
inside knowledge on that.
I think it's fair to say he might not do his own tweets. And I mean, I guess the question would be, does he even know this post is out? Maybe.
Yeah, who knows?
Maybe.
What we do know it's about, though, is that he was rooting for the Kansas Chiefs. And of course, they went to the White House and everything earlier this year. But this kind of leads into me believing that he's playing into just the millennial and really the Gen Z, not Gen Z, but Gen X, right? Gen X, Gen Z, Gen Y. There's too many generations.
There's too
we
many.
have too many. It's like Pokemon. Just like
I miss
stop,
the greatest
just make an
generations.
open world and update it forever so we can get over the generations here. But this comes with, I think, them trying to pull a lot more entertainment for the views just to like relate to that younger audience. And is why also during the Super Bowl ad, we had this come out from Joe Biden. I don't know if you guys have seen this yet. There was some really kind of crazy Super Bowl ads yesterday. Let me know which one's your favorite. But I'm going to unplug this so you can hear it with me. And for the chat listening through, this is why Bitcoin, I believe, is pumping. Okay, we're going to be going into a few different clips here, some from Biden, Clinton, and even Putin from Tucker Carlson interview, talking about the US dollar, it's shrinking, the dollar dropping in value, the inflation taking place, and why that could lead to an all-time high for Bitcoin in just under 60 days. We'll talk about that later in the show. So
then
here's the clip.
after this, I'm going to say, in my opinion, who led the charge for shrinkflation?
It definitely wasn't Drake on Twitter, right? That's we get
No.
Whoa! All right, here we go. We got the audio coming through.
Whoa.
I think so, yeah.
Red-eyed snake coming here.
We do not have audio.
Just turn off NDI and turn it back on.
Turn on. It's the little one down here, right?
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, okay.
Audio
All
is
so
coming.
this is
I
the
literally just
commercial that
tested it, too.
came out, while he's doing that. It was a commercial that came out, Joe Biden talking about not inflation, but shrinkflation. This isn't, I was going to make a joke. You know what kind of joke I was going to make. I'm not going to make that joke. But it's talking about basically the items at the grocery store shrinking. It used to be, I'd get 28 ounces of that Kellogg cereal. Now it's 26.2 ounces. What's happening here?
Well, Biden explains it right here
In the big game.
with no audio again.
Nope. No, we got it.
Oh, we got
the
it?
game, you might have noticed one thing. Sports drinks bottles are smaller. A bag of chips has fewer chips. But
It's
they're
fewer
still
chips,
charging
fewer
just as
chips.
much. And as an ice cream lover, what makes me the most angry is that ice cream cartons have actually shrunk in size, but not in price. I've had enough of what they call shrinkflation. It's a ripoff. Some companies are trying to pull a fast one by shrinking the products little by little and hoping you won't notice. Give me a break. The American public is tired of being played for suckers. I'm calling on companies to put a stop to this. Let's make sure businesses do the right thing now.
Yep, guys, his ice cream is shrinking. And this leads us into the conversation here today about where our economy is heading right now in the United States. So a huge part of why Bitcoin is going to be adopted, from my perspective, is the fact that it's a store of value. It's a safe haven asset. It's a flight to quality, as now Larry Fink wants to say after trashing on it for years to come. And we're seeing this not only in the United States. We're seeing this, of course, in China's, which is part of the BRICS nations, the largest of the BRICS nations, where a lot of their investors, despite banning Bitcoin over 2 years ago, are actually FOMOing into that asset, spending almost $100 billion and converting that as their real estate, and their traditional store values start to really take hits. And so as we approach this conversation today, I kind of want to just bring that into light as, the US dollar sees more money being printed, and we see inflation continue to persist. We see things like shrinkflation take place, which might have an effect on this article we'll talk about in just a second. That is a huge bullish narrative into Bitcoin's price action, and why this bull cycle, again, I think is going to be the mother of all bull cycles. Not only are we going to get the mother of all short squeezes, as we talked about last week, MOAS, we're going to be getting that mother of all bull runs here.
Well, there's one thing, you can't really talk about inflation without thinking about the elephant in the room, where this might be a capacity issue for a lot of people to understand, but you keep hearing record profits, record profits, record profits. Well, what happens when there's record inflation? Record profits, because the dollar's worth. And so, you might have, you know what I want to see? I would like to see profits based in, Bitcoin's a little too volatile. We wouldn't get a good data, but profits in gold ounces. Because, when you're making $1 million in 2017, but now you make $1.4 million in profit in 2024, what actually gives you more purchasing power as a company? Where can you buy more chicken tenders to sell if you're a restaurant? Where can you buy, more fake plants to throw? Now, I was off camera, so I didn't do it. But To me, when you keep hearing about record profits by these corporations, record profits, the first thing I think about, well, that's what happens when the dollar is nothing. Because it's like, you know what else is record? The chicken nugget price is also, you know what, record prices for chicken nuggets. And so, of course, they're making record profits because the dollar is worth less. But are they actually making more nuggies? That's the real question.
Yeah. And you want to make sure that you're not shrinking any of those profits yourself, guys. Make sure you guys check out decrypted.tax. You can see it in the link right here in the bio, guys. We're doing free consultations, which are shrinking day by day, guys. So make sure you guys go apply for that.
So I'm saying lowest inflation in the world isn't the kronar. Swedish kronar has lower inflation. That's just one thing I was thinking. I don't. Maybe it is. I'd have to check the most recent data. I don't believe it was for
technically,
2023.
Bitcoin has the lowest inflation. It actually is, going to be deflationary at some point.
It's actually disinflationary.
Fight me right now about it, Nick. What do you got to say?
I
but shout out to all 500 guys. There's 500 people watching right now. Beautiful, beautiful people. Make sure you guys close that gap on that like button for us. But to the opposite side of that, so we have a renowned economist, Paul Krugman, saying that Joe Biden should be boasting about recent extremely good news about the U.S. economy. So even though there's an argument to be made about shrinkflation, which is meaning even though, we have record profits, it's because as Americans, as the middle class, you're having to buy more and more goods or spend more and more money just to have the same amount of items that you once had in terms of those goods in previous years. But in a thought-provoking social media thread on a platform on X, Paul Krugman dissected the current economic climate, suggesting that President Biden should openly celebrate recent economic successes. Krugman's commentary sheds light on the complex interplay between economic data, public perception, and political partisanship. In 2008, Krugman's exceptional contributions to understanding trade patterns and the geographic allocation of economic activities were honored with the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Sciences. Krugman begins his thread on Twitter saying this is an extremely good economy at this point, challenging the hesitancy among some Democrat consultants regarding whether President Biden should highlight these achievements. However, Krugman notes a discrepancy between the objective economic indicators and consumer sentiment, attributing to this large gap largely to political partisanship right here.
Can we go to my screen real quick? Everyone's talking about this. Yeah, we're breaking off into new highs, very, very close to the 50,000 mark right here. We're going to continue to monitor this, but it looks like it's getting a little bit of resistance. I believe this is very, very close to the previous all-time high.
Get on the 1 minute chart.
If we go to the 30 minute, just to see when we previously hit, okay. Looks like we're maybe, we're getting close, folks. We are getting close. We're going to, like I said, we'll update you as we get closer to 50K. $141 away. We're almost there.
We are going to smash through that and break through that, I think, very, very short. Probably by the end of the stream. It really depends on how many of you guys like this video. But Krugman's conversation with a concerned businessman about the persisting inflation rate of 3.9% led to him present a series of numbers to contextualize the situation. Now, I don't need to get onto the boring logistics here, guys, but the point is the inflationary mechanisms that is the Federal Reserve, that we're continuing to print this money. It's an artificial issue. This is created by men and women in a boardroom and decide whether or not they should print money or not print more money. And of course, this is affected by a lot of different politics and policies over the years. But this leads into Hillary Clinton saying something about Bitcoin, which is essentially a threat to the US dollar in her perspective. And this, again, is going to roll into all of the articles we have out here today on why Bitcoin is pumping, but why I believe it's going to continue to pump even harder towards the presidential elections this year. So
yeah, it just makes sense. There's going to be a little bit of a liquidity injection. I think we're all in agreement here. Speaking of inflation, there's one more clip. I can't play the audio here, but this is Bill Maher and then the famous, I think, exercise person, right? Jillian Michaels. They're talking about inflation. We won the pandemic economically. Inflation is insane, Bill Maher. Inflation is not insane. Jillian, go buy a car. A house has tripled here. Buy some effing eggs. I think that really sums it up. We keep talking about record this, record that. Economy's great. How does affordability feel? And then that's going to be my new metric for 2024, affordability. And right now, I believe most people are feeling the pinch of affordability. I think affordability is down across the board. So when you might see something about wages, unemployment, rent, inflate, interest, I love it all. How's affordability? Because that's really what matters to people.
Yeah, DZ, I heard it put this way. There is a recession happening for the middle class, but there is a boom happening for Wall Street. There are two different economies. Okay,
yeah,
just because
two different
there's
economies, I would agree.
Yeah, there's like 5 economies in the United States. 2 of them are seeing great numbers. The rest are getting absolutely demolished.
Yeah, it's the wage versus prosperity, right? So since 1971, when we came off that Bretton Woods system with the gold standard, we talked about this actually with Charles Hoskinson too a little bit, which you guys should definitely go check out that interview on Sunday. A phenomenal, greatest Cardano interview ever.
All time.
We also get to ask Charles Hoskinson himself if he's a Swiftie. Fun interview.
Oh, I went there.
Yeah,
I went there.
You went there. You did. But that interview, we kind of dive into that very topic on, are we actually seeing better economies than ever? And how does that actually affect, of course, the middle class and the 99% here? But here's Hillary Clinton coming out and talking about her thoughts on Bitcoin.
And then one more area that I hope nation states start paying greater attention to is the rise of cryptocurrency. Because what looks like a very interesting and somewhat exotic effort to literally mine new coins in order to trade with them has the potential for undermining currencies, for undermining the role of the dollar as the reserve currency.
That's why we like it.
Stabilizing nations, perhaps starting with small ones, but going much larger. So when we think about this new environment in which we find ourselves that we've been discussing for the last some minutes, we can't just think about nation states. And then one more area that I hope.
So, yeah, there you hear it, guys. We're pulling up the chart, too. I think we might have hit 50K, but...
Yeah, we rejected off of it about 48 seconds ago, everybody. If we just look right here, yeah, I got it stretched vertically, too. Look at some of these volume bars are going insane. So we're knocking on the door, folks. We are knocking.
Hey,
so here's
Kelly,
$50,000.
can you hear me?
Here's my Hillary, this is going to be my representation. Bitcoin is going to undermine the US dollar if we're not careful about, I don't know where that exaggeration was coming from. She's not wrong. So
she's been hanging out with Pete Davidson a lot.
She's not wrong at all, I think, in what she said here. This was incredibly
Speaking
factual,
cadence.
saying, this could undermine currencies. And that's the exact point and purpose, is as these, whether it's nation states and second world, third world countries, as the US dollar prints more money, you got to remember that the US dollar has been strategically placed to economically engrave hitman policies on these other countries. So if we print more money, they're indebted to us. The World Bank, the IMF, they've indebted these other countries to us. So when we print money, those other countries have to print even more money, and it causes currency debasement, which is exactly why Bitcoin is so powerful.
Well, it's what she's not saying that I find telling here. She's also saying, it might start in these smaller economies in these smaller countries. What does a small country do if they don't have a good currency, Josh? Do you know?
I don't. Let me
before El Salvador, what do?
They would just borrow more.
No, they use dollars. And so if you're a failed economy, your economy essentially becomes a US dollar economy. You basically have just imported a bunch of dollars because your currency is so worthless, you can't even wipe your butt with it. And so it's cheaper to buy paper towels at that point. But it's so bad, you have to use a US dollar. And then these countries are increasingly saying, well, that's not good currency either. I'd rather use Bitcoin. And so that's her fear right there. It's like, it's the... We want the take your medicine, and I don't care if the medicine feels worse and worse and tastes worse. And you know what? Your symptoms and the side effects, it just gets worse and worse and worse. They're saying just keep taking your medicine, keep taking your medicine, keep taking your medicine. And then there's vitamins over here, and those vitamins are Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's that straight up debasement right there. And it's like we saw it at Bitcoin Miami in 2021. There's literally countries, guys, where they start printing so much money, you have to take wheelbarrows of cash. You'll straight up have 100 pounds of cash just to pay for your groceries. It is so inflationary, it becomes toilet paper. So I 100% agree, but we have Mike Novogratz here coming out and battling back against Hillary Clinton, saying sparks flew this week at the Bloomberg New Economy Forum as political heavyweight Hillary Clinton squared off against crypto advocate Mike Novogratz, who, of course, is famous for his Luna tattoo. But the CEO of Galaxy Digital over the fate of the US dollar. The Fury exchange centered on Bitcoin's potential role in de-dollarization, a trend where countries reduce reliance on greenback for international transactions. The former Secretary of State fired shots at Bitcoin, warning that Bitcoin could rise and undermine the US dollar here as the reserve currency, citing its influence on de-dollarization efforts like those by the BRICS group. This echoed growing concerns about the dollar's long-term dominance, fueled by factors like geopolitical tensions. Mike Novogratz responds saying the only thing that can undermine the dollar as a reserve currency is reckless spending by both parties, not just one, both parties. Trump and Biden have normalized huge deficits and have put us into the worst fiscal crisis of my lifetime. Don't blame Bitcoin. The report card on fiscal responsibility.
I love that sentence. Bitcoin is a report card on fiscal responsibility, aka don't debase your currency.
Yeah.
It's a warning.
Yeah, exactly. And that leads us to, of course, if you guys saw the Tucker Carlson and Putin interview Before we get into all of the liquidations and the charts here with Kelly in the basement and understand why Bitcoin is moving to that upside, President Putin at the time in this interview, guys, was talking about BRICS. So there was a lot of history and a lot of stuff, but there was a few golden moments, I would say, in there with a lot of information. And now this isn't necessarily highlighted. If you guys didn't watch it, here's kind of the takedown. Russia believes now, as they're the presidents of the BRICS group. They took over the presidency, I think, about 12 months ago at this point. And I don't remember which countries prior to that, but they're now responsible for the initiative behind BRICS itself. And he talks about the US dollar just completely collapsing. And you can hear it in this interview right here.
Policy struggle is one of the biggest strategic mistakes made by the US political leadership. The dollar is the cornerstone of the United States power, but they won't stop printing. What does the debt of $33 trillion tell us about? As soon as the political leadership decided to use the US dollar as a tool of political struggle, a blow was dealt to this American power. I would not like to use any strong language, but it is a stupid thing to do and a grave mistake. Look at what is going on in the world. Even the United States allies are now downsizing their dollar reserves. Seeing this, everyone starts looking for ways to protect themselves. But the fact that the United States applies restrictive measures to certain countries, such as placing restrictions on transactions, freezing assets, etc., causes grave concern and sends a signal to the whole world. Do you even realize what is going on or not? Does anyone in the United States realize this?
So essentially, he's saying the United States is shooting themselves in the foot. And, the takeaway from here is not going to be like what he's doing with Russia or anything. It's just overall what's happening to the US dollar. And the facts are the US dollar continues to be printed more. These restrictions are hurting other countries. That's going to force them into an alternative. And no matter what, that isn't Bitcoin's fault. That's the United States' fault from both parties printing endless amount of capital. And that's why Bitcoin is so important.
Yeah, and freezing assets. He was like, we obviously have a concern with freezing assets. And I don't know what it is in other countries, but in America, it's pretty close to the top 1% is pretty close to 90% of the wealth. Top 10% is close to 99% of the wealth. And so when you start freezing the assets of the people who have 90% of your country's wealth, maybe you don't want to invest in that country anymore, Yeah. And so that's what he's saying. When you weaponize the dollar, he's talking about freezing oligarchs' bank accounts. That's going to ruffle some feathers on the higher up elites.
Serge says here, but the dollar isn't collapsing. It's not about the dollar collapsing. I do not believe the dollar is going to collapse whatsoever. I think the dollar is honestly become even more strong over the next decade. It's just about the fact that a lot of these second world and third world countries are being forced into something that isn't necessarily the dollar, whether it's El Salvador, a lot of South American countries, you have Central African Republic, you have Honduras, you have a lot of countries that are starting to push. They're not trading the US dollar whatsoever. They're using Bitcoin as a store of value. Now we even see it in China. So this is where it's just bullish in the sense that I don't want to have my savings account in the US dollar because as someone that's 26 years old, I may not believe I'm going to have a 401k or Social Security by the time, I'm retiring. I don't even know if that capital will be available. So it's kind of just another way to diversify that portfolio and make sure that you're taking a lot of, you're risk offing those assets as your investments for the longevity. So as Bitcoin though, guys, breaks 48K, nears $1 trillion, we're going to have Kelly from the Bitlab Academy downstairs. Show us what's up on the charts, man. I mean, I don't know if we're past 50K yet.
It rejected hard. It's bouncing off, not hard, but it definitely rejected off of 50. Kelly, are you getting excited too? Will it hit 50? And I'm trying to grab my ear thing so I can hear you.
Hey, I'm feeling good. Everybody here right now, if you have been watching for more than an hour, you are ahead of everybody in the world. And if you've been watching for months or years, does this not feel good? Let's just take a reminder here of this right here. This drop was felt like it was never ending, but look at this and look exactly where the price action is finding a little bit of resistance right on the order block here on the Bitlab trading stack, coming right into this zone. And we rejected right on 49,999 on the Bitstamp chart. But what I want you to really pay attention to is check this out right here. Things move so fast. It's hard to remember that we've already had a 30% push up since January 22nd. Now everybody's wondering where does it go from here? Well, I mean, it's going to chop back and forth along the way. And I have a stream after this on the Bitlab stream. I'm going to be talking about some max pain that could be coming for people that aren't prepared, because this is generally going to be up and to the right, just like we see here. We're going to have some bumps along the way, but man, this feels good. If we turn on some of the indicators here, I just want to point some stuff out. Look at this reversal call right here called on the Bitlab trading stack here, Bitlab Intelligence, right before this jump to the upside. Of course, we also have positive money flow here, and the stochastics are angled up, the RSI is angled up, but I am a little concerned if we do reject here, if we don't have the stochastics and RSI really start pushing up, we could be forming a pretty strong bearish divergence from this point back here all the way up here. But my point with this is I am bullish as I can be, but I am a little cautious. If we get down to the 1 hour chart, look at this. Look at this buying pressure right here. All of this volume. We do have the RSI cooling off a little bit. We have a little bit of negative money flow coming into this, interestingly. But I think we just need to be a little cautious here. Don't be somebody that's trying to catch absolutely every move on 100X with your entire portfolio. I mean, we all trade on Blofin here at Discover, and I'm using a portion of my portfolio to trade these movements, but I'm not putting myself in a position to absolutely get lost here. What I'm ultimately watching right now, if we do get a drop back down, is a support here on this trend signal line that's coming up right here about 48.7. That's my first stopping point to the downside, which would ultimately be the most bullish, because this would also represent staying above the previous not all-time high, this previous range high. And then, of course, also this VWAP number, which is at 48.2. If we lose that area, then we could be looking at some further downside. Now, I did post this in the Discord earlier today. I mean, look at this call, even on the 1 hour, this reversal call right before this move to the upside. If we do have some sort of pullback that does, have a little bit more momentum to the downside, I'm ultimately watching this area right here, 47. Now, why 47? Because if we zoom out, this blue line has represented a lot of trend control here, both whether you be bullish or bearish. Now, interestingly, I did see this today when I was doing some TA. These previous highs back here in July 2022, if we project these out into where we're at right now, we interestingly have also broken through this region here. So it's feeling very good, but be a little bit skeptical here. There's some positivity here in terms of the fact that we have had some liquidations. So we want to make sure that this isn't just a short squeeze without real buyers coming in, buying it to push this up. Now, the last thing I wanted to say is we do have some very positive growth here. This is the ETF growth rate. This is that buying pressure coming in from these larger players, buying thousands, over 10,000 Bitcoin a day. This is very positive, and we can see this reflected in the Bitcoin dominance coming up here, breaking this trend line. So it's very interesting. It's going to be interesting to see if this does push to the upside, because we do, at the same time of seeing this, see that the altcoins, this is the total altcoin market, basically minus the top 10. We do have a very bullish structure here. Now, if you want to understand more how to read this, guys, everybody, we're just at that $50,000 mark. We do have an incredible deal going on with Bitlab Academy that is going to be expiring this week. So take advantage of it. There's a link pinned in the top of the description there where we have a 30-day free trial to the Bitlab Discord. And then after you sign up for that, check your email. It gives you all the information about how to get integrated. And then we have the best deal we've ever offered for the Bitlab trading stack with the indicators, as well as the courses. And there's so much in there. Take advantage of this while it's still here. lab.bitlabacademy.com/Josh. But you know what? I'm bullish right now. Even if we get a little pullback, remember, it's not the end of the world. That chart shows us we are in a very strong bull trend. We need to see rise, retrace, continuation for healthy movement. So let's take any opportunity we can to pack our bags, because I am bullish. The question is, are you? And if you are, hit that like button. And that's all I got for you today. We'll see you in the Bitlab stream right after this.
Thank you for joining us here, Kelly. Yeah, we have Bitcoin recording 5 record green month candles here now. So this is huge. I mean, accumulation wave hitting a 3-year high. So you can see that each and every cycle when we're on the monthly chart. Again, 5 months, boom, bullish, 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 bullish. So we have a bit of a pullback. 6 green candlesticks, though, showed that we were in the bull run of 2021. And again, we are getting that 5th monthly candle. But speaking of accumulation, this was really interesting. Martinez on Twitter here pointed out that a buy the dip opportunity was popping up in Bitcoin's market based on the MVRV, which is the market value to realized value ratio, which fell below its 90-day average. So historically, if you guys are looking, like, when's a good time to pick up? Of course, you want to wait for pullbacks. You never want to jump into giant green candlesticks. But when this value does break through this blue line, we have actually broken under this average, this moving average it has itself. So this could be a precursor to a massive move that's going to be coming, whether it's in March or this month or in April, towards that Bitcoin halving. We could be about to see a pretty significant opportunity to accumulate those assets.
Well, speaking of accumulating those assets, I know it's Monday, but we do have the last market day of inflows. I just like showing this every day because it's getting more and more bullish. The Coin Ducky Derby here, we got the 9 more than offsetting the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust here. Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, once again in the negative, $100 million, leaving Bitcoin ETF ecosystem. But BlackRock said, hold my Bud Light, and it put in 200 million, more than offsetting by 100 million, plus the Fidelity with 128, and then another 86, plus another 60, giving us net inflows of $400 million last market day on Friday.
Yeah, and guys, give us that price prediction in chat right now. What price do you think Bitcoin's going to right now? Are we going to go to 55K first? Or are we going to go down to 45K first? Let me know, 45 or 55K in the chat here, because right now, guys, the liquidation data is revealing that, with those inflows you just showed us, that Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Dogecoin are among the most affected assets with liquidation. So bears are the primary reason we are moving to the upside right now. You could see total liquidations within the last 24 hours, 89 million. And this has definitely changed. It's definitely well over 100, if not 200 at this point. So your bears are getting wrecked, and that's why we're getting the short squeeze to the upside. This is that mother of all short squeezes we covered just last week with you guys, read all across the table. And the effect of these liquidations on market performance is multifaceted. On the one hand, the elimination of short positions can alleviate downward pressure on prices, potentially due to short-term rallies as the market adjusts to reduce the numbers of bets. So again, short squeeze is causing this push higher as more and more people start to FOMO into short positions because they're like, oh, well, we've pumped so much, we have to drop. This is actually what causes those monthly candles to continue to see a 5, a 6, or a 7. We have 45?
Yeah, 55, 52, 55, 52, 45, 55, 55. A lot of 55s in there. Some 42s, 45s as well. Dry powder. People with the dry powder are the ones waiting for 45K. When you're talking about bears, I looked up, Nick, the shaved bear meme that's going around?
Oh, yeah.
Do not type that in. I'm not signed into my X account. Do not type that in. I'm sorry, Tim.
Risky Google?
Are you telling me to type that in?
I may have. Well, bear has another meaning, and I had totally forgotten about that other meaning. I had forgotten about that other meaning, and I typed that in. I was like, that's not a bear. Oh, and I just exited out.
Sorry,
Tim. I hope I didn't mess up your algo
Pulling up an
there.
Incognito window right now. Hannah, don't turn around.
Well, as he pulls up that and, ruins his meal,
just
ruined
ruined
his lunch
Tim's
meal.
algo, unfortunately.
What's crazy, this is a crazy number to me, is how many Bitcoin holders are actually in profit. So if you guys follow any creator that has been bearish and told you to be a bear, that you should sell, you should short, that markets are going to go to 25K, it's going to go to 32K, it's going to go to 12K, that's still possible. 91% of Bitcoin holders are in profits. Okay,
yeah.
So 91% of the market is bullish and winning.
Well, speaking of Bitcoin creators, what about this guy right here? 10 years
Da
ago,
Vinci.
This was just going viral again. Just buy $1 of Bitcoin, please. 10 years ago.
That might be the most liked video in 10 years when it's like, Bitcoin at $1 million.
How expensive was Bitcoin 10 years ago?
Oh, dude, it was pennies. I think $1 was like 100.
No, it wasn't pennies.
Was it not pennies?
No, it had to
12
have been
years
I think it was like 15 or 20
It's hard to
bucks.
find
Oh.
charts that go back that far. Maybe like
No, you can
that
do it.
still exists today.
I thought it was like 2 Bitcoin or something when you like.
It's 2014. There's charts.
Oh, never mind.
Well,
never mind.
on
Yeah,
TradingView,
could have been
it gets a little bit more
I don't
difficult.
know. I don't have that good of memory there, but what we do have memory of is crypto whales now $6.2 billion purchase. So can Bitcoin surge to 57K? Guys, as retail sells, as retail shorts, whales are accumulating heavily. Bitcoin whales have accumulated an additional 140,000 Bitcoin in the past 3 weeks, injecting 6.16 billion into the flagship cryptocurrency. This surge is buying activity that has prompted a mix of anticipation and skepticism among these investors. However, despite the optimism brewing among many investors, not all market observers share this enthusiasm. Skepticism remains a persistent theme, with some analysts cautioning investors about a potential volatility ahead. Now, my thoughts about this is disbelief. This is the max pain for Bitcoin, guys, and we've been teaching you guys this for weeks at this point, is if the price was not to go back down. Why? Well, if you guys remember this entire bear market, I know so many creators, so many hedge fund managers, so many analysts that were saying, don't buy, we're going to go lower. They kept on the sideline. They stayed on the sideline. We dropped down to 15K, they didn't buy. We dropped down to 18K, they didn't buy. 22K, they didn't buy. 24K, they didn't buy. You guys get the picture. Now we go up to $50,000 Bitcoin. They finally started, feeling like they're going to inch in with that spot ETF early in January. A lot of them actually ended up buying back into the market because they were like, oh my goodness, we're going to go to the moon. They missed out on 280% of Bitcoin's price action. That's like the majority of the bull run right there that they just missed out. And then as we dropped to 40K, all those same people were like, oh, well, DZ, we're going to actually go to 30K. So actually, no, this is our opportunity. We're sidelined. It's going to go back to 25K, 33K. We're going to get in. They never got in. So the max pain for prices in my perspective right now is that upside, movement to the markets where we don't come back down. We go up to 55K. We go up to 60K. That will hurt the most amount of retail investors because whales have been buying the entire time.
Yeah, when the price goes up, you feel like you're missing the party. And when you get out a little too early or, when it goes the other direction, you feel like, well, I got out, I had a good time. But when the party's still pumping, that's when you get the ultimate FOMO. And then May 2013, when Jeremy told the world to just put $1 in Bitcoin, Bitcoin was $116. It's telling you get like roughly almost 1% of a Bitcoin for $1. Right now, that same 1% costs you $490.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. But before we get to our altcoins here, guys, we do have a special guest going to be joining us right now to just cover what it looks like for these elections coming up in terms of specifically Gary Gensler. There's a lot of rumors around who, is Gary Gensler going to be around? Should he be fired? What's his next position? What does this mean for crypto and the markets overall? So welcome to the stream, Samuel. This is Samuel Arms with the FBBA, which is, of course, the Florida Blockchain Business Association. I've had the opportunity to work with him for quite a while now at this point. We just went down to Ron DeSantis back in November, spoke on Web3 policies. I help from the media front. But welcome to the stream. We just want to give a little background who you are. This is the Fed. So I'm just kidding.
What an intro.
He's not.
Yeah, so I do all the political work down in the state of Florida, sometimes in DC, responsible for passing like 5 different bills in the Florida legislature. And our most infamous or famous bill, depending on who you are, is our anti-CBDC bill. And so our anti-CBDC bill bans central bank digital currencies in the state of Florida. So now I just do all kinds of political work. So happy to be on the show.
All right, and last name Arms. You're not a like arm wrestling influencer, are you?
No.
Military industrial arms. He's a dealer.
CIA.
That's right.
I don't know what to believe anymore.
Yes, exactly.
All right. So, are you going to try to Trojan horse the CBDC bill? Is that what's really happening here?
No, actually, so we got a lot of flack for that bill, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, you can't actually ban central bank digital currencies," and we were like, "Yes, we can, and we're going to," because I believe in being proactive with legislation. So that was kind of the big deal that we did.
Yeah, so what did you actually do? A lot of people are concerned with CBDCs, and I try to bring up this conversation all the time. I'm like, yeah, you can in fact ban this on the state front and make it extremely difficult for the the feds to come in after this. What did it mean when you wrote this bill? What does that actually do for these states to never see a CBDC?
Yeah, it essentially sets up a lawsuit because the big idea is, do we have the authority to ban a central bank digital currency? And the whole idea behind that is that we believe that the federal government is subverting our rights in the Constitution through money. And so I always tell people, I'm okay with efficient money. Nothing's wrong with efficient money, but I don't want authoritarian money. Yeah. And so I believe if you want to be proactive and stand up, you have to ban authoritarian money. And so then the argument becomes, well, do we have the authority to do that? I think we do. And if we don't, we're going to fight for it. Because if you have the fight after a CBDC is already introduced, you've lost, right? And so I believe in proactive legislation. I refuse to accept any kind of authoritarian currency. And as long as you're in Florida, and now a bunch of other states have replicated our policy as well. And so if you have a bunch of states saying, no, we're not going to deal with this, it becomes very hard to implement.
Yeah, would they have to go through the Supreme Court and it'd be years and years and years of legislation?
Exactly. They'd have to sue every single state, which if we write the laws differently, they're going to have to sue in each state in different types of lawsuits. And then the Supreme Court would have to essentially rule with each individual state. So you bog down the system and you can at least slow it down. So if you have a certain president who wants to promote CBDCs, maybe that buys you enough time to get a different president or a different Congress who doesn't like them.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So basically you're just using money to drag the heels so they can't put in all these controls. And people that wondered, well, what is the fear? What is the fear? Like a self-destruct button or, maybe controlling how you spend it? What are the fears of CBDCs that, maybe people aren't aware of?
Literally tracking everything that you want to do. So even there's articles in the Bank of England saying, well, we don't need inflation if we can actually have your money expire, right? And currently the broad Keynesian economic theory is we need inflation in order to get people to spend. What if instead of inflationary policies, I just say, hey, the amount of money you have in your bank account or on your CBDC app is going to zero at the end of the month. So you have to
You
spend
said
it.
something really good, and I want to double click on that. You said, the original reason we have this inflation, there's this 2% target. We don't know, well, why is there a 2% target? You hit the nail on the head right there. Not enough people understand this fact. It's to incentivize spending, meaning, if I just held onto my dollar, put it under my mattress, in the future, if it has more purchasing power, I might not want to spend it. I might want to put it underneath my mattress.
Or
So
think more carefully how you spend
it.
it.
It's by design that it inflates. Could you just talk on that a little bit more?
Yeah, simple. The idea is if your money is going to be devalued in the future, you're incentivized to spend it now. That is literally all of Keynesian economics, like you were talking about Paul Krugman earlier. That's his big belief.
Yeah.
And his other belief is that me spending creates other people's income. So there's nothing wrong with inflation making us spend because it's good for everybody is what his theory is, as opposed to a deflationary asset, say like Bitcoin, which will not only hold its value, but it also encourages you, the consumer, to really think about what you're going to buy. So instead of just being forced to spend your money on superfluous stuff, maybe you're really thinking about, okay, do I really need that next iPhone, that next computer? Because the $100 of, say, Bitcoin I have today could be $120 tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's psychology. It changes the entire way you think about not just economics, but you as a person, what you want to buy and spend.
So we need to be good consumers for the machine. We got to be good consuming cogs. Otherwise, the whole thing breaks down.
Inflation, there's that argument, right, of this is actually good for the economy. But what they don't want to argue is what the retail feels, which is, no, you're forcing me to spend. Right?
Correct.
There's a big difference between wanting to spend and forcing to spend. So this is where you get into your consumer, expenditures and all your indexes on like how that actually moves our markets. It's like, well, at the same time, you have wages versus prosperity. The guy that's printing the money, of course, the Pauls, right? They're printing the money. They get to decide what they want to spend the money on.
Correct.
And it forces everybody else to spend that money on their initiatives.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuances because inflation obviously hits the poorest people the worst, right? So by the time the rich people get all of the money that's been printed, they can actually put it in assets and you're kind of shafted at the end. But even tying this back to the CBDC, so once again, the logic follows. The logic follows that why instead talk about inflation when I can make you a currency that expires? And if I want to be able to track everything that you do, which, we already have credit scores, we already have stuff that you're buying on Amazon being tracked, a CBDC would just be more efficient at that. So it's just more efficient authoritarianism. And it is interesting from a legal perspective because it does kind of get around our Bill of Rights, our inherent constitutional rights to just say, hey, well, all the freedoms you have, freedom of speech and everything else, like you have to use the dollar and we can limit the dollar because you're mandated to use the dollar. That's kind of the back door. So,
and it's programmable, so they can force you to spend it
at any point in time. So we're inching there, but I don't think people understand how much of a true nightmare it would be if it were implemented. Other people will say, well, we don't think the feds are working on a CBDC. The Fed has claimed, the Treasury has claimed, well, we're just looking at more efficient banking rails. It's all being set up. It's all being set up.
And they are doing it, which is what I don't, we often talk about like which administration would be better for crypto. And it's not which president, it's which administration, right? Because who are they going to elect? Who are they going to appoint? And right now, I don't know if you saw this in Ukraine. Ukraine announced, I think it was Friday or Thursday, that they may freeze bank accounts to push war services. And it's all regarding crypto. So if you, in this bill, in fine print, is like, if you're against the opposition, if you're an opposition party, and you're, financing because you're against war, you don't want to, you don't want to be drafted, they will freeze your accounts completely. And you have to use a service called the DIIA, which is completely funded by our current administration. The tens of billions of dollars we've been spending built this entire program. And they actually on their website grace it as this, they're going to give them a Nobel Prize. It's like they are obsessed with this because they say it's bringing 19 million people together under the government, makes for it easier for transparent, yada, yada, yada. But like literally can freeze those bank accounts. And so my question to you off this is, since this is already taking place, how does, there's this topic around Gary Gensler. He is the SEC. He's trying to enforce regulations on our market. How do we as whether it's retail or different political parties, push him out? How does that process work?
How do we get rid of Goldman Gary?
Yeah, how do we get him out? I want to get him out. I want him out.
Yeah.
I can't kick him out. So how do I get him out?
So first, let's look at how he even got there. And this is all pretty public information, but it really makes you think why presidential elections are so important. So if you remember when Bernie Sanders was running in 2020, there was an open Democratic primary. Elizabeth Warren was running as well. And so Elizabeth Warren stayed in that race and actually subverted a lot of Bernie's votes, which ended up getting it so that Biden sailed into victory. Why did Elizabeth Warren do that? because she knew if she stayed in, Bernie would lose, Biden would win. She now has huge favoritism with the Biden administration. When Biden won the election, a lot of Elizabeth Warren's staffers actually went to Biden's cabinet. So then Elizabeth Warren had the pick of the litter when it came to things that she wanted and still wants with the Biden administration. Elizabeth Warren, who is anti-crypto, put Gensler there and is actually probably trying to get him into some even more powerful positions, depending. So she's the reason Gensler's there. She's the reason why Gensler, I think, is turned so anti-crypto. There's different ways and mechanisms to kind of serve the SEC. So the SEC has 5 chairs, and they're appointed by the president, but have to be voted and approved by the Senate. Starts in the Senate Banking Committee and then moves to the Senate overall for approval. So because the Senate's Democrat, Biden is Democrat, he could get anyone he wanted in there. But there's some interesting nuances. So one, the president can choose the chair at any point in time. So President Biden could currently just say, you know what, Gensler's a bad chair. I want a new chair. But he has to pick from those remaining 5. And the chair is the one, even though the commissioners are all equal, the chair is the one who directs where most of the policy enforcement is going to go. So if there's anti-crypto sentiments, it's because Gensler has decided this is going to be the current focus of the SEC. We're going to be chasing these guys as opposed to, I don't know, actual fraud, right? Or looking into more serious things he's tied to, like FTX and all that fun stuff. So the president can have a lot of power over the SEC directly. Congress can try to impeach different SEC commissioners, but that's a lot longer, more politically charged process. I've had congressmen talk to us about trying to pull funding from the SEC and using the funding mechanism to say, as long as you're not doing what we think you're supposed to do, using the power of the purse, but that never works. That's always a threat. They can do what they've done in the past where they call Gensler to the public forum and roast him. But in terms of actual power, like, he's still there, right? And his term ends in 2026, by the way. So whoever the next president is going to be able to fill that spot. There are some rules stating that, you know, you can't have more than 3 people from a specific party on the SEC, supposed to keep it balanced. But realistically, you can still have Republican, Democrat, or whatever party with the same, say, for example, anti-crypto agenda. You can find a Republican who's anti-crypto. You can find a Democrat who's anti-crypto and just simply have them replace Gensler's spot. But yeah, so the next presidential election, as far as the current administration is concerned, I don't see anything changing, right? Simply because Elizabeth Warren is a very powerful senator and has a lot of influence over the current administration. So if you wanted to vote, you would obviously just not want to vote for whoever Elizabeth Warren's with, which is tough if you're a Democrat. You might have other priorities beyond crypto. So that's a choice that you have to make for yourself. But if you're looking at just strategically crypto, Elizabeth Warren's your target. And, you know, she's running for Senate this year. I even wrote some pieces about, you know, we should be finding maybe some Democrats in Massachusetts to primary her. But no one did that.
The last name Kennedy.
Yeah, and so
that haven't gotten in a car accident.
Yes, that's right. We had a lot of options, but even Elizabeth Warren has a lock on Massachusetts. But no one even tried. No one even tried. So
this is what a lot of people don't actually realize, and this is something you've opened my eyes to completely. Like, being able to sit in a small 30-person room with DeSantis and talk, you know, litigation on like Web3 policies and its future. People don't realize you just have to do it. Like, it's a very small party. Like, it seems so much bigger, but how these political powerhouses work is you scratch somebody's back early on and they start moving up. It's just like the Elizabeth Warren scenario. She stepped in to run for presidency, so that way to, you know, let Biden win. The political favoritism over that is going to be huge, and that's what allows her to have this political opposition moving forward. And so that's what makes her powerful. And so, you know, what do you do with the Florida Blockchain Business Association? And Chad, I'm curious to I'm curious to see where you guys are at. You guys want to see us get even more involved and definitely, you know, be at these events and these hearings, because you were just at one recently. How do you actually approach these bills? I know there was one you recently were telling me you went in and the Congress, like I don't know if it was a congressman or who it was on the local state rep, didn't even know what the bill was.
Yeah. So politics, to your point, is all about relationships, but it's also a lot about power dynamics and rewarding your friends, hurting your enemies, as everybody says. So in Florida, we had 5 different Web3 Bitcoin blockchain bills up, 2 of which we wanted to kill, which we did kill, and then 3 we're trying to promote, which look pretty good right now. And our session ends in March. So there was a bill that was essentially a mini bit license bill that was going to require you to get a license to self-custody crypto. And we were like, this is going to kill the industry in Florida. And by the way, once a bill's introduced and gains traction and gains legs, like that bill will come back next year and we'll have to fight it again. So we just set up a meeting with the right lobbyists and the right state reps. And this specific senator that I went to talk to, we essentially were like, what's your goal with this? Here's why it's bad. And he just said, listen, guys, I haven't read the bill, right? It was just given to me by a friend. He told me that the bill would actually help the industry in Florida, that it would be good for things. So I said, yeah, sure, why not? Right? So people don't understand that sometimes it's just a circle that politicians are in, because they, to their credit, this will be the only time that I'm like defending a politician, but they're inundated with information.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're just going to go, if their best buddy's like, hey, I promise you this bill is going to help the industry, they're just going to send it.
It's not so much a nefarious thing, but maybe it's easy to pull the wool over their eyes. 19,000 pages, 37 bills, your session's ending in March, and your buddy said, you've known the guy 40 years, you went to school together, your wives hang out, they both like Taylor Swift. And then, you're just signing it. And so, unwitting participants, I guess, might be the good.
And what you just said, 100%. It can literally be as simple as your wives are hanging out. Right. And you're like, yeah, why wouldn't I? That's my buddy's wife. How can I help her?
Yeah, she's a Chinese national billionaire daughter. About McConnell.
That's right. No, that's his wife. Yeah, that's right. His wife owning the shipping industry, right? And then you become the trade transportation commissioner.
But look, her dad being a billionaire, that's coincidence.
Minor detail.
There's one thing I want to talk about CBDC. I feel like is a first step that no one talks about, and that's the elimination of paper. Just imagine it's the future. We got a flying car. You're stepping out with your Apple goggles, 17. You go up to your robot barista. You're going to order your drink. And now all of a sudden in this transaction, in this future world, you pulled out crumpled rectangles.
You're like, ew.
With dirt.
Yeah.
That's so I do feel like paper is going to go the way of the dodo. Should we try to fight that? Is that really, in a weird way, one of our best champions for Bitcoin is paper money and people's love for it?
Yeah. What's really fascinating, by the way, is when you think about the argument for why the US would ban paper dollars, what is the most used currency for criminal activity? It's the $100 bill. The reason we actually don't care about that is because it's the $100 bill. We would rather it be in our currency than someone else's. So even strategically speaking, even if the US wants to move to just digital and CBDC, the government loves the idea of physical dollars being the world currency for even criminal activity, because it means there's demand. And they know if they cancel that $100 bill, they're going to switch to something else. So the criminal activity, ironically enough, actually incentivizes the US to not want to just ban physical cash. But to your point, I do think that would be a goal, because I do think, like, even people who say Bitcoin's anonymous, really the most anonymous form is a physical dollar.
Yeah.
Only the people in the room with you know what's going on when I give you a physical dollar, right? Bitcoin, you can still track and trace. So yes, the physical dollar is one of the best forms of private money. And there is no doubt in my mind that will become a target. But I think it becomes a target when the rest of the world starts using physical dollars. Because right now, we still, or what they could even do is ban it within the US, but then still allow everybody else to use physical cash.
They're just trading old paper. If you had to give a year, what year do you think politicians are really going to have their guns out for paper money? Is this 20 years from now, 100 years from now, or could this be even 10 years from now?
I can't believe I'm going to defend boomers, but as long as boomers are in Congress, those people love their physical cash. Right. And they're still, so that might even be a generational thing. So I would actually argue the guns will come out as the generations change in Congress.
So we need Zoomers to buy vape pens with paper money.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's going to be a long time. There's very limited young representatives that are,
you got to think outside the box.
That's actually, man, if we have a bill that says you have to buy vape in dollars, like physical cash, we probably are safe.
It's a 40-year way down the line, fourth order consequence or benefit, but it would work. It would work.
Well, we're going to continue to have these conversations, guys. Sam will be with us tomorrow again. I definitely, if you want to, stay throughout the rest of the show, we got a few articles we need to break through on why prices are moving here. So we'll run through it. But chat, I definitely want you to know, guys, do you guys want to see those videos? Type 1 in chat if you want to see the videos and, seeing us at these hearings.
People love this 1 minute chart. We're going to go back to the 1 minute chart on Bitcoin here.
2 if you don't.
On the 1 minute chart. Okay, we got juicy green candles, but we still haven't really knocked on this door of 50K yet again. Looks like 3 different minutes. So, I mean, that was 180 seconds of volatility.
I think we'll break through it. I think we'll break through. You don't think, you think
the
that was
more
it?
you knock on a door, the easier it is to knock down. And so we need to knock on this door at least 1-2 more times, I would say, before we can break through.
Yeah, I think it's coming no matter what at some point in time. But we do have the Bitcoin halving report from Grayscale, the world's largest digital asset manager. So I want to run through this one really quick because it faced a decreasing block reward. Guys, actually, I didn't pull up the right one. Bitcoin halving. Check this out, guys. Countdown. We are less than 60 days away from this.
Are we really?
Oh,
Under 2 months?
62 days. We're back up to
You
62.
liar face.
It jumps back and forth.
Well, you know
of,
what? It's
the
almost
reward time.
counting because it's a leap year. You know, it's 2024,
True,
so we do get that. But
yeah.
February with its stupid amount of 28
days, man. 29
idiots.
days. Yeah. No, it's 62 days, though, guys. I expect massive volatility and probably upside pressure, which could mean we see an all-time high before the Bitcoin halving, before we get a traditional bullback. And again, remember, guys, we've talked about this plenty of times. We do get those pullbacks. It's a buy the rumor, sell the news type of event where either it trades sideways, which was 2013s or 2014s, 2017, 2018, it pulled back. 2020, it pulled back. I do expect it to follow that pattern here. We do have, of course, Bitcoin. People are asking if it's going to decouple from altcoins. I don't necessarily believe so, but I do believe that Bitcoin's layer 2 ecosystem is booming with the halving approaching. So layer 2s, guys, like Stacks, you guys saw it in the top 24 hours here. Let's go back to the top 24 chart. Stacks is that layer 2 opportunity on top of Bitcoin at $2.02 right now. It's going to allow smart contract applications, ZK rollups, those type of things be integrated in the future with you have restaking and all these DeFi mechanisms. I expect some explosive growth coming from there.
Yeah, and Cardano, because I just had to say, you say liquid staking, I'm bringing up Cardano. I know it's different, but I'm going to do it anyways. Here's suspiciously, here's just something I want to point out you see every single time. I like to get your 2 cents on this. The deficit, so we got some deficit figures for 2024. We're going to be in the red. Surprise, surprise. We're going to print, and we're going to overspend by $1.6 trillion, $1.8 trillion in 2025. But like all politicians, guys, around the corner, we're going to go in the right direction again. Yeah, don't worry. 3 years from now, we're going to right this ship. It's an ocean liner. You move the wheel. It doesn't move immediately. You still hit the iceberg. But trust me, that iceberg 3 years from now, we're going to totally dodge it. Are we going to dodge the iceberg in 3 years?
No. And I would be very suspicious of anyone. Republicans love to say we need to cut the deficit. Any politician who's going to tell you that we can right this track is wrong. We're already too deep. There's really nothing.
Well, let
nothing
me give
you
you
can
some
do.
counters. AI can give us growth, so we grow our way out of it. Is that a possibility?
So the grow your way out of it is a populist sentiment. Reagan was saying that with the tax cuts and everything. You can grow your way out of maybe $1 trillion worth of debt. 33 trillion, no.
Okay. So a lot of people say, last president we had that was running a surplus, Clinton. Many people would say, I want to get your 2 cents on this. The only reason that happened is because the internet bubble, the PC revolution. If that had not existed, we wouldn't have had the economic engine to give us a surplus here. You don't think, AI, nothing can really get us there?
It's tough because even his surplus, that whole talking point is kind of like the inflation talking point where they changed the basket of goods. So how are you measuring the surplus, which he had? Right. Yeah. And so the fact is, even if we had a surplus, we were still accruing and setting the foundation. Like you're setting the railroad tracks for the debt jubilee. I'm not a huge fan, but it's still tough because the economic factors in are so different than the economic factors now. Right. You've noticed it. We are just money printing machine. But where is that money going? Right. Even during Clinton, if you look at the amount of debt that we had under Clinton, they would have never guessed we would be breaking 33 trillion.
Yeah.
I think it's going to come from obviously we do need a budget, but it's definitely going to come from no longer the topic, can we fix this deficit issue or this fiscal and monetary issue? Can we plug the hole and just remain the strongest economy? So whether that's, having the world rely on us for liquid financial gas or more resources and be more energy independent, those are kind of the avenues I see us progressing towards with AI and those advancements. But that all is extremely bullish for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, because if we can't stop the issue, that does mean a lot of these second world and third world countries that don't have the same fiscal and monetary policies as the US. And even though it seems like we're very chaotic with our Congress and our overall administration, it's much more independent and secure than everywhere else in this world. So they're going to struggle more. That can cause more debasements, more geographic decentralizations in terms of that Bitcoin production. And that's all extremely valuable for us moving into Dude, I'm so bullish on Bitcoin. It just makes me more and more bullish.
Same. And, keep talking about inflation. I know we got like 1 or 2 stories we want to cover before we wrap it up here. 3% of all Ether supply has been burned since implementing 1559. But let me go ahead and splash cold water. Let's turn bearish on this. If you have $100 and you burn $1, how much of your supply did you burn?
1%.
Right. If you have $100 and you burn $10, but then you print 9 more,
1%.
Can you say, well, but then can't someone get a little, can't they finagle those stats and say, yeah, but 10% has been burned. And so they're doing the same thing with Ether.
This goes to, that's your opinion, because technically it's 10%.
Well, we're defining, burn, we're arguing over the definition of burn here, but what does burn mean to you, Chad?
Yeah, it's one of those things. They'll take
this stat is very misleading. They're burning, but they're also printing. Now, it is slightly deflationary, but they have not eliminated, it wasn't 1 million Ether and all of a sudden 970,000. That's not how it went.
Yeah, but I do expect that. So even though it's slightly deflationary, it still isn't inflationary at this point. And if we do get these Ethereum ETFs, this moves into the now narrative. Guys, altcoins are lagging. They're going to move with Bitcoin's price action. As Bitcoin breaks 50, 55K, that is going to flood over into large caps and these altcoins. And Ethereum is right up there with the next ETF. We've seen James Seifert and as well as Eric Balchunas talk about they believe an Ethereum ETF will happen. And I think it's like a 60 or 70% chance. But this is because of the courts again, right? We saw the ETF originally for Grayscale through the courts. They won against the SEC. And with the way it was set up through the futures with the CBOE and everything, this is the same way Ethereum was set up. So if they were to deny Ethereum, it would be taken up to court and they would honestly lose again, just like they lost for Bitcoin's Ethereum or Bitcoin's ETF earlier last year.
People are tweeting about, letting us know about NVIDIA. I know we got, I don't know if you want to pull up the last article or two, but NVIDIA on the 5-minute chart, just melting faces. This was in the 600s and now it's approaching 742.
Deep pin.
I mean, good job, stonk holders now.
Look, it falls into the narrative. So speaking of AI advancements and everything, I agree we're going through that world. This is where decentralizing that physical infrastructure takes place. So we have things like, of course, NVIDIA guys, your semiconductors. As we approach quantum computers and engineering, and we have more supply chain crunches because of the semiconductors, whether that is China invading Taiwan or the CHIPS Plan 4 Act that the Biden administration implemented years ago, it's going to take 4 to 5 years to set up those facilities. So if any small discrepancy takes place in these markets with the demand increasing, that supply shock will be massive. And that's why I think decentralizing that narrative is so important. And even if it captures 1% of that overall narrative, we're talking trillions and trillions of dollars, which means billions of billions within the crypto community. So that's, of course, decentralizing your cloud computing, your rendering, your storage. You guys are very fun. You guys love the file coins and the decentralized Arweaves, right? Those narratives, I think, have massive potential moving into this bull run.
Massive potential. We had Charles Hoskinson, more suitable for the stable coins, more suitable for the crypto industry. Let's see here. According to Charles Hoskinson, he's been talking about algorithmic stablecoins. They are suitable here, and he made this statement during an interview with the Discover Crypto crew.
Is that us?
Yeah, man.
Wait, can you click on that interview tab real quick? Click on the word interview. What happens?
Let's see here.
Oh my God! Whoa! Who is that? God, those cool. Beautiful beasts.
This big shout out to what was this? Coin Edition.
Yay! Struck my ego. Sorry, my bad.
All right, should we just end the show on that just to make it super awkward? All right, folks. That's all we got. Josh made it weird.
No, Charles Hoskinson, though, you were asking about Falcons. You were asking about bunkers. We were talking about Taylor
RFK,
Swift. RFK. Yeah. It was a great
Who was at that California Democratic National Convention? Who did hire his bodyguards? Yeah, all types of crazy questions.
He told us about some submarines under Zuckerberg's
I'm not saying
island.
Confirm, but when someone, when a billionaire says, Mark Zuckerberg has a submarine port in his underground lair in Hawaii, I believe him.
I believe him.
I don't want to believe.
I know. Is it like, did he fall for his words? Did he get us?
Maybe. All right, folks, that is all we got. Please hit that like button on the way out. We're going to have links in the chat. Check out this man right here, Mr. Arms. That's all we got. With an E.
With an E.
Mr. Arms with an E.
Thank you, guys.